Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Blindside Fresno. My name is Darcy Elliott, and we are here today to talk about canes versus dogs. What are the advantages and disadvantages to both if you are low vision or blind? And our panel of experts today is Nikki and Jamie. They'll be arguing the argument for canes today, right?
Yes.
And then to my right, I have William and Debbie. And they will be discussing guide dogs and why they perhaps are a better choice. So I guess we'll just go right to it. I don't know, wrestle for who gets to go first, or I don't know. We'll start with Nikki on our live since she's first time guest on our program. Welcome,
Yes,
Nikki.
hi.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to be blind, how long that's happened, and your decision to stick with the cane. How did that come about?
I lost my eyesight due to diabetes about 4.5 years ago now.
Okay.
And I primarily chose to go with the cane for right now because I just didn't want, I know the dogs are a lot of maintenance and, just having to worry about taking them everywhere with you.
Okay.
And I tend to be spontaneous or take a lot of trips out of town and don't always want to have to worry about taking a dog with me. So
All right.
kind of why
Fair point.
yeah.
All right, Jamie, welcome back. You've been on our program before. So why don't you share with our viewers who might be new your story a little bit and your reasoning behind having a cane at this time in your life.
Okay, great. Thank you for having me again.
Of course.
I have retinitis pigmentosa, and my vision has progressively gone. So recently, when I retired, I actually have a guide dog.
Okay.
And she retired as well, and that I found that when I retired her to get back in the community and the world independently, I couldn't do it with my cane. Because I used my guide for 10 years, and so without her, I was completely lost. So I actually went through another 1.5 years of training with my cane, my O&M instructor, so I can become proficient and continue to stay independent that way.
Okay, excellent. And William, who is also the producer of our show, he is has Guide Dog Life, and they've been together almost 4 years now.
Yes.
So why don't you share a little bit about your story?
Well, my name is William Elliott, and as Darcy says, I am the producer of the show. I went blind about 7 years ago due to central retinal vein occlusions. That's blood clots in my retinas, which caused me to lose my sight. And I chose to go the guide dog route because I was used to living with dogs, and on losing my last pet dog, I felt that maybe a guide dog might help replace her and also be someone who was useful and would help me.
All right. And Debbie, who's also been on our program before, she has her 4th guide, Hadia, and these guys are fast asleep on the floor in case you can't see them. So why don't you explain a little bit about your situation and how you came to have 4 guide dogs throughout your life?
Thank you for having me again.
Of course.
I have what they called pseudo retinitis pigmentosa, which means that they don't actually know, but it has to do with my retinas. And
It sounds good.
Yeah.
It sounds very
I grew up
impressive, right?
with low vision and have since lost my vision. I now have a little bit of light perception. I'm not comfortable with a cane, and I never have been. And I thought, trying a guide dog would be a great idea. I was raising my kids at the time, and it just worked for me. Everything just fell into place, and I've had 4.
Okay, great. So I guess if someone was facing the issue of whether they should have just a cane or a guide dog, and some people kind of have had both at different times in their life, it sounds like. It's a kind of a personal decision. So what would you say ladies, Nikki and Jamie, the advantages of having a cane over a dog. Not that there's anything wrong with a dog,
No.
but in terms of, for you, what are the advantages of just using your cane?
For me, I know personally, like I said, I go a lot of places, which I know, like, service animals, they're allowed anywhere that you go. But to me, it's more convenient. I feel like I can be more at ease to just be on the go quicker. Like I could just get in and out of places quicker, and I don't have to, I already have to worry about getting myself around. I don't want to have to worry about, getting a dog. And then sometimes, even though they're allowed everywhere, sometimes depending on who you're riding with, friends, they might not want a big old huge dog in their car.
Right.
So I know that that's kind of like one of the main things too with me. It's just more convenient to me to just be able to just pick up and go and not have to worry about taking care of the dog as well.
Okay. And Jamie, what are your thoughts on that? We'll have a chance for a rebuttal here in a minute, guys.
Yeah.
But, just in all fairness, we do what you're saying. Like, you don't have to worry about packing dog food and medicine or,
Yeah,
water bowls and stuff like that.
because I have a pet dog, but yeah, it's like, I could leave her at home. I don't have to take her everywhere with me and constantly be watching over her and stuff.
Okay. So, Jamie, how about you?
For me, since I have both, but the cane for me right now, where I'm at in my life, is more important. Because like I mentioned a few minutes ago, is that without the cane training, I was completely lost. I've never, if you want to say, out there walking in my own community, in my own backyard, essentially, and I got lost.
Okay.
I literally had to call my son and say, where am I? Because Beth Ann, which was my guide, she knew the route. So I never paid attention. So that when I went out there alone and I got lost, and I was like, okay, personally, I relied on her too much.
So you're saying the cane gives you a little more independence, or
Correct.
is that?
For me, it is. I love Beth Ann, and I'm not saying I'll never get a service dog again, because that's probably not true.
Right.
But right now, where I'm at in my life, my primary focus is orientation mobility with the cane, and keeping myself safe independently. And then I think that once I feel that confidence, then I'll probably be a better handler with a guide. But for now, that's just my preference.
All right. So, dog people, why do you think a dog is a greater advantage than a cane alone?
I'll let Debbie go first.
All right. She's the expert,
She's
right? She's on dog
expert,
number 4.
yes.
So,
Well, I agree with Jamie in a lot of ways. You do need to have good mobility skills and be able to use a cane, because you still have to know where you are. You have to figure out landmarks so that you know where to turn, or which streets to cross, or how to get home. Because you have to tell the dog where you want to go. You can't just let the dog go on its own.
Yeah,
Even though,
as a point of clarification, because people ask William all the time, well, how does the dog know where to go, or how does the dog know how to get to this? And the answer is, he doesn't. The owner
Right.
has to know and tell the
Exactly.
dog to turn left or to right. I mean, he might get used to some specific routes that happen over and over again, but it's the handler that needs to know where they're at to keep everybody from getting lost, right?
exactly, yes,
Exactly.
yes. And if something happened to your dog when you were out, you would need to know how to get home,
Right.
or how to get to help, or, you have to know at least how to find someone, or how to find a building, or, you can't just go out there and not know anything.
Right.
So
if
mobility-
you're agreeing with Jamie, then why is the dog then the better choice?
Because I
I'm playing
feel,
devil's advocate. I don't know.
That's
if you can
okay.
tell.
that's fine. I feel much safer with a dog.
Okay.
They take you around things that you don't even realize are there, and it's much less time, excuse me, time consuming. because you don't have to find all these things and then find your way around them, because the dog just takes you around them. If there's danger, the dog will stop you. You don't almost fall into a hole or trip over something. Even though, because when you're walking with a cane, you can miss things very easily. If you use constant contact, that's when you just drag the cane from one side to the other in front of you.
Right.
You're going to find more things than if you use the actual normal technique of just tapping one side and then the other. I don't know. I'm not comfortable using a cane. I do have good cane skills, but I'm really not comfortable. I feel safer and much more confident with my dog.
Okay. William, what are your thoughts? I saw you nodding your head when Debbie was talking. What were you thinking there?
I was agreeing with Debbie in that the dog will often keep you out of a lot of trouble. Myself, whenever I used my cane, I would often find I would get in more trouble. You can find yourself wandering down an alley or finding your way to a flight of stairs, whereas the dog can take you around those obstacles a lot easier. So the dog can find the ramp for you. And I also find that with a cane, I often have more trouble with sighted people. People will ignore the cane and often walk into you while they're texting. They will trip over your cane, tread on your cane and things. Whereas with the dog, they seem to notice you more and give you more leeway. The dog will also take you around people without you hitting them on the ankle, which
Except
is
when they
a bit
deserve it.
embarrassing.
Yeah, I'm like, if they step on my cane, they're gonna end up tripping.
Right. Well, I'm nodding myself because I'm with William, of course, in life a lot of times, and I'm with him sometimes when there's using a cane, and I observe a difference in how people interact with him as a cane user versus a dog user. And I don't know, since you guys use mostly the cane now, my observation is that it's a lot easier to ignore somebody with a cane, and but the dog doesn't get ignored or looked over as much as with a cane. What are your guys' thoughts on that, Jamie and Nikki?
I mean, I think that's true. You know, I could see where that is, but I also would feel like having a dog, a lot of people probably want to stop and be like, oh, can I pet the dog? Or it's kind of distracting, I would assume that, and that's why people probably notice, somebody with a guide dog because, it's a big dog. So it's
Right.
hard, and especially like if it's somewhere that dogs aren't normally allowed, it's very easy to see and people connect it with, oh, okay, they can't see. But I would feel like I would have a lot of people stopping me all the time to want to pet the dog or to ask about the dog. So in a way, I'm kind of happy to have the cane for that reason too. It's like, they might not notice me
A little
as
more.
much, but, at least I feel like I can, they're more likely to just look at me and be like, huh, and then keep going than to
Yeah.
stop and want to interact with the dog. And I'm like, if they don't notice me, I just always say they're the blind ones, or I'm the
Yeah.
blind one, they're not. So if they step over my cane or trip, that's not my fault. I can't see.
Right.
So
Yeah, and they still go like, whoa, what, are you blind or something? And they're like, oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I get
Yep.
that. Even with the cane out, it's like, oh, you can't see? Like, no, I just had this out as a prop,
Yeah,
know.
I'm like, yeah, just thought it would be fun. to
Yeah.
head out down
Right.
the street. So Jamie, having had both, using both extensively, I'm guessing you get far more attention as a dog. People notice you and stay out of your way, but you also do, like Nikki said, I think, and you guys can comment on this, you do have a lot more attention drawn to you just about talking about the dog and petting
Yes,
the dog. And
oh yes, and you know, when I had my service dog back then, you know, I had a sign, please don't pet the dog, she's working. You know, some sort of visual aids to help them not interact. But a lot of people, they can't help it. You know, they just still have to do that pet or that interaction.
Yeah.
And some people who have their guide dogs are very comfortable with that, others are not. I was a little bit more comfortable. It was just when we were working, of course, as a distraction. But as far as using the cane, yes, people a lot of times have to take a second look, or, you know, if you bump into them, they'll be like, hey, and they're like, oh, my bad.
Yeah.
You know, they'll apologize. But educating and advocating, I think that for me, I've done that more as a cane user than I was with my guide.
interesting.
Yeah, they totally understand it when they visualize it, and then with the cane itself, especially when you're partially sighted, but not always, is you'll get different replies like that. But you know, I have no problem educating and advocating for myself, so I just look at it as an opportunity. So when they come across somebody else with a cane, maybe they'll be more
Alright.
prepared.
That's a good point. So I'll ask William and Debbie, how do you feel? Because I know you guys get a lot of attention of asking about the dog. Can I pet the dog? How did you get the dog? All of those questions. And how do you feel about that as a guide dog user? Is it a good thing, a bad thing, both? I don't know.
I don't mind personally. If I'm in a hurry and someone asks to pet the dog, I'll say, hey, ask me later, because I'm in a hurry. But I find that it's a perfect opportunity to educate people about guide dogs
Okay.
and their, excuse me, and what they're used for and how to treat them and all that.
William, how about you? Because William is naturally kind of a quiet and introverted person. So how do you feel about having so much attention drawn to you with the dog and having so many questions asked of you?
That is one of the difficult parts for me of having a guide dog, but I've grown accustomed to it, and I do actually try to use the time to educate the person. So if I'm sat somewhere quietly and someone asks can they pet Leif, then I say, quite often I say yes, and we'll then talk about how old he is, where he's from, how the process works and things. And quite recently we had 110 degrees temperatures here in Fresno.
It
And
was a little warm.
yeah, for about 10 days, Leif stayed at home, and I actually found that I'm at college, and I went to the college. Several people who had never spoken to me before would come up to me and ask me, well, where's the dog? You're using a cane. Why? Where's your dog? When they found out Leif was fine and everything, they were all happy and they went away. But it just shows you're more noticed than what you really think you are. I've never had someone come up to me and say, well, where's your cane today?
I
Yeah.
think also the guide dog makes people smile. I had a student come up to me the other day while he actually just kind of walked towards me and then walked by, and he said, that dog always looks so happy. And it's just nice to hear people smiling and, you know, making a
Yes.
nice comment.
It just depends on the person, just like the handler with the guide dog and the person who's behind the cane. Some people are very shy. Some people would hear, you know, they'll just get up and just say, hi, I'm Jamie. What's your name? Because,
Okay.
you know, we know that they're next to us,
Right.
especially if they're like seeming to be uncomfortable, because you can kind of sense those things. But it's really about the person who you're interacting with, I think.
Okay.
Because I've met a lot of people that, you know, that some are shy and very introverted, and probably just because of their personality, whether they had a guide or a
Right.
cane, they would be very upset about being approached. But, you know, yeah.
So not all blind people are the same.
No.
Like
Oh, definitely
everybody else in the world, right?
Yeah.
That's one thing
Yeah,
that
we
comes
are
now.
individuals.
Yes, for
We just
sure.
have a tool.
Yes. So keeping it real, dog people, what are the disadvantages of having a guide dog? Why would having a cane just be simpler?
You don't have to find a place for relieving them and pick it up.
Ah, there's that.
Yeah. And the other one I would say is one that sadly Debbie faced recently, retiring your guide dog and then for the dog to actually die. That's a real heartbreak. If your cane breaks, so you just get on Amazon or somewhere and buy a new cane.
Right.
The dog, you have a emotional bond as well. So that's pretty tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, your guide dog is with you all the time.
Right.
A pet dog isn't. And not that you love a pet dog any less than we love our guide dogs, but the guide dogs just become part of you.
It's a more intense
Right,
relationship
yeah.
with more.
Yeah, I had my guide dog for 12 years, and he was just a part of me. He was just there. Even when he stopped working, he was just still part
Right.
of me. So that makes it tough.
Yeah.
But they're worth it, every bit.
Yeah. So it's definitely, I think, a question of weighing, not being aware that there are no disadvantages to having one or the other, but what are the advantages and disadvantages, and then making your choice.
Right.
So
Right,
is there
yeah.
any disadvantages of just having a cane, do you think?
Um,
I know, Nikki, you've only ever had a cane, but Jamie,
for what I've found here recently when I've just rid a cane, the cane does really, really well, you know, on the ground and shoulder to shoulder covering you. But getting hit in the face with a bush,
oh,
you know, guide dogs are trained to watch
Okay.
out for
High,
high
right.
as well. So, and I knew that about my guide, but it wasn't until I was out there with a cane by myself that I
that it became a reality, right?
Yeah, exactly. Definitely.
Yeah. So, do you have any thoughts on that, Nikki, or?
Yeah, I know, like, I mean, I would say, like, for me, just being, like, a young female, especially in Fresno, I know, like, kind of something that would be a plus side to having the dog and kind of a disadvantage of the cane is just, I think I could see the comfort of having the dog with me because I would feel a little bit more protected, not just in the sense of detecting branches, but just
Right.
I think it would be, my stick's only so intimidating. Like if I had a
Right.
dog, you know, it might be, I would feel a little bit more protected. They can sense danger a little bit more, like, because I have no vision whatsoever, you know, I can't see shadows, so if somebody was to be approaching me or anything, I would have absolutely no idea that
warning.
anybody's coming at me
No
unless
warning,
I,
That's a good point. So, I guess going back to, and one of the themes that I thought when you guys were all talking was the importance of orientation and mobility
Absolutely.
and those skills. And this is our 10th or 11th episode at this point, and I have to say in almost every single one that issue has come up, the importance of being able to orient and get yourself moving in a safe way. And I've also talked to several blind people who don't go anywhere or don't do anything with a cane or a dog because they're afraid.
Right.
And they're afraid of falling, they're afraid of getting lost or hurt or, you know, something like that. So what would you say to those people who aren't using any assistance to get around, whether it be a cane or a dog? What would you say to that person who's sitting at home and is just afraid and just relies solely on another person for guidance? So, and I guess we'll start with Nikki again.
I am fairly new to being blind, so
Right.
I'm probably not as trained in the O&M myself. I still have a long way to go with it. I go very short distances with the cane by myself, so a lot of times when I do go out and about, I have a sighted person helping me get through crowds and stuff. So I can understand the fears, but I mean, it is a sense of independence that you can kind of get yourself out there and be able to go somewhere. So, you know, start out small, start out going somewhere, you know, that you can get real familiar with and doing it and start easing into that comfort. But I do think that it is super important to have the orientation and mobility to get out there. But
Right. And so, Jamie, you mentioned specifically that that was an issue actually after having a guide dog for many years. So what would
Right.
you say to that person who's still...
I would say that they're not alone. I mean, all of us at some level of our vision loss or whatever we're going through, we have a tendency to isolate because you're, you know, adjusting to it. But don't stay there very long. There's lots of tools that are available to you, and cane training, mobility is one of them. Even starting off in your own home and, you know, getting really familiar with safety techniques indoors,
Right.
and then moving that to the outdoors. And most of your mobility trainers work with you at your pace, and that way you can, you know, be able to be more independent. If you've lost your sight or losing your sight, probably the biggest thing for you is mobility, which for all of us
Right.
was driving.
Mm.
And so when that driving of independence was taken away from us, then we have to figure out, okay, there's other ways to get around. How can I do that? And that just kind of, you know, drove me to getting my service dog and then now onto my cane. But don't be afraid, and you'll be able to do it. We were all with you at some point.
Yes. All right, William, what are your thoughts on the orientation and mobility issue?
From my point of view, orientation and mobility is essential. And after all, even though Debbie and I are dog users, we are also cane users as well. Our first step towards being able to use a guide dog was from learning how to use a cane reasonably efficiently. So it is hard to get out and about, so I agree with taking small steps and building confidence using orientation and mobility instructors when you can, and just practicing, and also to relatives and friends of blind people, try not to hold them back. Let them get out and explore. By allowing them to do that,
That's a good point.
you're helping them get stronger and be less dependent.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And Debbie, what are your thoughts?
I think to begin with, independent living skills are very important, because if you figure out you can do things on your own at home, then you can venture out and get your mobility instruction, and that really builds confidence, I think.
Yeah. I want to thank you guys for coming and sharing your experience. So thank you again, ladies, so much for coming, and gentlemen, and talking about this. And we could probably go on for a lot longer, but we are going to have to sign off. So thank you. Hopefully you'll come back again for another topic. But as always, thank you for joining us here at Blindside Fresno. You can reach our producer, William Elliott, at blindsidefresno@gmail.com or on Facebook at Blindside Fresno. And in the meantime, have a great day, everybody.